Shut your doors, close your curtains, and pop in some earbuds, because this is What the Fluff. I'm your host. Y'all can call me Jay. Today, this episode, we're going to be talking about LGBTQ. And then there's another one that I'm going to talk about for sexuality, and that is pansexual, and another one for gender identity, which is non-binary. Now, I should probably start at the beginning. L stands for lesbian, which is basically the female version of the male gay, basically where the female is into other females and not males. That's basically the easiest way to explain it, which then kind of brings us right into gay, which is when guys are into guys instead of girls. So it's pretty simple, easy to explain. Then you have bisexual, which bisexual is sort of like the half and half between being gay, lesbian, and straight. It's where you will date your gender or the opposite gender. So you're kind of right in the middle where you're not like, I mean, like my gender, it's kind of like being in between. And you have T. So the first three are basically sexuality, and the T is gender identity, which is transgender, which there's a lot of controversy about. A lot of people have this sort of feeling that you were born a certain gender, stay that gender. Basically, when you're transgender, you either want to change your gender, change your body part and stuff, or you think you're another gender, which both kind of go hand in hand, but not really. Those are the two sides. Like, you can be transgender, like, you're like, yeah, like, let's say you have a guy. He's like, yeah, I'm a guy. I know I'm a guy, I've got guy body parts, but I'm gonna go. He goes in for surgery and comes out, and he's like, well, now I'm a girl, because I'm trans, because now I have body parts. And then there are the other side, which is like, yeah, it's like, I'm a girl, but you have the male body parts, but you're a mindset of a girl. So those are kind of the two sides of being transgender. Might be, and there's sort of like an in-between those two that I've seen. And I mean, I understand it. We don't get choice in our gender, and sometimes you want to change. I mean, I'm not against it. I'm actually kind of for it. So, yeah. So that's T. And then you have the Q. Now, the Q stands for questioning and/or /queer. I'm not going to go into queer because that's a whole nother thing. I'm going to go with questioning. As Q, questioning is basically when you're not entirely sure of your sexuality or gender identity. So it's just what it sounds like. You're not sure, you're questioning it. So it's sort of like before you found out, or before you've made your ultimatum decision, but you're kind of questioning it. So questioning doesn't fall into either category of sexuality or gender identity, because it's when you're questioning that. Then we have, like I said, so for the next sexuality that's not there is pansexual. Pansexual is basically when you'll date your gender, the opposite gender, transgender, and so on and so forth. So if you're dating a transgender, you're technically pansexual. So it's basically when you have no preference. Which isn't a bad thing. I know people who are pansexual. I have a friend who's pansexual, and we're actually pretty close. The other is non-binary, and that's basically when you don't identify as gender. So you can be, like, I have a friend who's non-binary, and she's like, I obviously have the female body parts, but I'm not a female. Like, that's literally what she looked at me and said. She was like, I choose not to pick a gender and stuff like that, you know? So basically, so she's like, instead of taking the pronoun he or her, you know, he, she, she's like, I guess I'm non-binary, so my pronoun would be it. And so now that does bring up a good question. Why is pansexual and non-binary added on to the LGBTQ to be like, I don't know, LGBTQN or something like that? Well, that's because pansexual and non-binary are both a minority. Not like, children, they're not exactly a large group for group size. We have LGBTQ, and most people don't even know the Q. Most people put it LGBT, because you have large groups of both lesbians, gays, bisexuals, and transgenders. If you look at their numbers, they're actually pretty big. But then you look at pansexuals, and it's actually, when you compare the numbers, it's really small. Same thing with non-binary, it's really small, so it doesn't have enough of a presence to warrant it being on that. And it's also lengthwise. I mean, it's LGBTQ, it's quick to say, it rolls off the tongue easy. I mean, if I go to, like, what I said, what was it? LGBTQN, that doesn't roll off easy, so they kind of have that short. Those are sort of the thing behind it. And then one of the dumb questions I've heard on that is, where's the S? And S for straight, no, there's no S on LGBTQ, because LGBTQ is when you're anything but straight, so we're not going to add straight to that, because that whole thing is for when you're not straight. So that's why straight isn't there. Even though straight's just a term. That's really my best way of explaining it. There's no real thing to it. There are other people who could probably explain it better. I'm not sure, but I think space and being straight from the muzzle, which is another podcast that I do listen to, explain it pretty well. It's just my quick way of explaining it. It doesn't have to be in a 42-minute episode, because I don't want a little quick thing that doesn't have to take up your entire day. So, yeah, that's all I've got for LGBTQ. And now I bet there's somebody out there going to be like, well, which category do you fall under? That's another episode for another time. So I'm going to hold you out on that. So tell your friends of this podcast, hit that follow button, listen to it, and have a good day.